Hi everyone, welcome to Dave's Bonsai. On today's episode, July is coming to an end, so I thought I'd take you on a little bit of a bonsai garden tour. It's a beautiful day in Minnesota. The sun is going to be in and out of clouds. There is a bit of a breeze, and the planes keep flying overhead, and there's a re-roofing job going on back there. But I swear we'll get through this and it won't be too painful. So let's get started down by the cabin cold frame. Every year I get a chance to jump in the car with my son Toby, and we take a road trip across the country. Southeast, southwest, northwest. This year we had a chance to go north and east. More about that a little bit later. When I leave for a vacation, I have to rely on family and friends to take care of the bonsai while I'm gone. This year the road trip was 9 full days gone on the road. That's a long time to be away from your trees. Now, summer maintenance is typically just all about the battle to keep things watered. And so I had to figure out a plan, because as supportive and lovely as my wife is with her support with the bonsai world, yeah, it gets a little taxing to have someone spend a half an hour to an hour a day watering my trees. So I told her I'd figure up a sprinkler system. And so I did. So this year, she didn't have to sit in front of my trees that often. She kept a peek on them, right? She kept her eyes on them to see if anything drastic was going on. But the watering was pretty much taken care of for. Now there's pros and cons, of course, to all kinds of watering. And when you just set your system on a timer and water every day the same, again, pros and cons. All the trees are getting watered pretty consistently, right? Or maybe not so much. What if it's a really windy day and the sprinkler system is not hitting some of those far outreaching trees? They could dry up and die. What if it doesn't need rain or water due to rain, or due to lower temperatures, cloud cover, and maybe even high dew points, and it's just getting oversaturated with water? So the list could go on a little bit about the watering, right? You've got smaller pot size for some trees and larger pot size for the other trees. So to just do a general wash of a sprinkler, probably not the best overall method. However, I'd rather water my trees consistently and try not to lose most of them than lose a large amount of them because I just didn't get a system set up and it was just too much work for a family member or a friend who has helped me in the past. So before we do the update and the walk through the garden, let me show you what I set up here for my bonsai trees for this road trip 2022. So let's get started with the unit itself that turns on and off the water. I'm alongside my deck in the backyard. You can see it's very well shaded here. And here is the main unit. Here is the brains behind what happened these past few days. So I have the in source from my hose that is on. And if you notice, if I wiggle around a little bit, I have a little bit of spray. Gotta be careful, make sure that the connections are good and tight. And so here's the intake right here. Now, I'm not getting any kickbacks or anything from this particular brand. Go to your box store, go to any store that has watering hoses and sprayers. You're gonna find some kind of sprinkler system that's going to range anywhere from about $25 to $75. You can probably go much higher than that for sophistication. This happens to be the Beehive brand, and it also comes with Bluetooth into my phone, so I was able to monitor this, turn it on and off on the road as well. And so I just left it on, and I set it up into 3 different zones from my backyard. So as you see, this is a 4 hose system. I've got zone 1, zone 2, zone 3, and zone 4. And I can turn it off, the system off, or it's on the auto manual. And then there's some set clock times. You can set the timer. You can tell how long it's going to be. You can do all of that from the main unit. You don't need a smartphone to do this. So you set your clock, you set your start time and end times, how long you're going to water for it in each zone, how often, every day, every 12 hours, whatever you want to do. A lot of versatility here. And so you can turn it on and off and we're good to go. So again, I won't go into the specifics of these 3 zones and this unit from here. I've had a much easier time using it from my phone, so I'd have to sit here and take a peek at this a little bit longer. So I just set up 3 different zones, 6 o'clock, 7:01, 8:02, put them on for an hour, and then I went on my road trip. So I have the 3 zones set up, My first zone is my benches along the east wall back there, the east benches over by that fence of my neighbors. And that's predominantly where most of my trees are. We'll get close-ups on the garden tour in just a little bit for those who are new to the channel. But there we have zone 1, and when that sprinkler goes on, it gets all of that area back and forth there. As we pan left, my bench that I set up last year is back in the corner there. It's kind of shaded out right now. This is the shady part of the morning. And the next sprinkler goes this way and gets all the trees from about the pond all the way over to the garden. So the garden incidentally got all kinds of water this past 9 days, and all of these flower gardens, and the bonsai back on the benches back over there. And there's a couple of bonsai on certain benches plotted along the way there. And as we continue to go left in the yard, we have the cabin cold frame, which is tucked behind the shade right now as well. There's the cabin cold frame to the right of the big tree here. And all of the bonsai along the riverway from pond number 1 to pond number 2. And that is the third. There's the hose right there going around, and then the sprinkler is going to go this way. So that was zones 1, 2, and 3 to take care of the trees while I was gone. I would like to take this time to thank my good friend Nigel Saunders of the Bonsai Zone. So for those of you that recently joined my channel, it is strictly because of my friend Nigel. Nigel's been working in the Bonsai Zone in the YouTube world for coming up on 10 years. His 10th season is ready to kick off at the first part of the year. And this road trip, 2022 with my son, yes, took us to Canada, and we got to go and spend some time in the Bonsai Zone. We've got all kinds of footage, we had all kinds of fun, we made some episodes, we recorded some stuff, and just got to know each other better, live and in person. It was the most surreal thing in the world. He kept saying it was surreal, but it was really surreal for my son and I. My son aspires to be a YouTuber, and he was just enamored to be with someone who has so many followers, and it was just really an amazing, amazing time. More on that on upcoming episodes. We're not going to go too deep in that right now, except for to say thank you to Nigel. Such a warm host, and welcomed me and my son into the Bonsai Zone, and we had an absolute blast. And of course, because of Nigel's reach, just him putting a show out there with me helping him on a Ficus Friday, people became aware of Dave's Bonsai. So I am in debt to Nigel, and grateful as all get out to have spent the time with him, and to have the bonsai community just start to embrace me even more. That has been fantastic. So for the followers who've been around for a while, for the new followers, welcome to my backyard, and thank you everybody for joining me, subscribing to the channel, and checking me out once in a while. This is all about the journey. And as I joked around in some of the shorts that you might take a peek at on the channel, we had a lot of fun on this road trip, and having my son Toby with me to be cameraman sometimes and just support the effort was fantastic. So we're at the garage cold frame, and I still have a lot of tiger bark ficuses. They're up here and back here, and that is for the workshops that I lead with the Minnesota Bonsai Society. So they're doing really well, and since I've been gone, there's some nice growth on some of the trees. There's a couple over here. There's one back here that has, I don't know, maybe a 2-inch growth up there. Look at that tree. That branch is taken off, this one's taken off, this one's taken off, this one. So they're doing really, really well here. Now, they probably could use even more sun than they get back here at this cabin cold frame area, but they've been liking it back here, and no worry about over sun or heat. They've been growing fine, so until the workshop folks get their hands on them, they've been in good shape. I've got a couple boxwoods here that are recent purchases. Just to work on some more boxwood. I really like the boxwood trees and want to learn more about them. So they've had a couple of clippings on them just to kind of get them a little bit more into a shape, but we'll do more of those at a different time. Down along here, I have another boxwood that I have had for a couple of years. It's ready for a repot next year. I might repot it actually this summer with a special project I have in mind. I've been hinting about that for a long time. This since I left also shooting out multiple 2, 3, 4-inch growth spurts. Awesome. Jake, if you go look at the Jake's Cotoneaster episode from a couple episodes ago, Jake's Cotoneaster has some new growth. We just pruned that back. And this is one of many of the Siberian elm forests. And as you can see, since we did the last prune only a few weeks ago, and since I left, has already gotten multiple inches of growth on the Siberian forest, one of many. There are a couple more spooned out throughout the yard. And then, yeah, the tiger barks, the boxwoods, cotoneaster elm. That's it for the bench right here. We're going to move slightly over to your right, my left, and check out a couple of trees. One of them I'm really nervous about. So over here on the river bench, the microphone's pointing right to my neighbor's house who's having a new roof put in, so you might hear some staple guns going. We'll just keep this one short. But I have my winterberry that we recently pruned back, and it's got some nice new growth even down low here and here and here. So all the little minor trimming I did on my winterberry is looking good. I've got my two barberries up here. This is the darker leaf one, and that's looking really good. And the maple seed that flew in from my neighbor is doing good and fluffing out. But this is the one that's of concern. This was everybody's favorite, including me, with all the gnarly bark and movement. And I have lost a lot of leaves to just random dieback. I've got some little leaves left here. One of my fears with this guy maybe is with the sprinkler system is it just too wet, too much water, and it hasn't been able to dry out. So now that I'm home, I'm going to let this dry out in today's beautiful sunshine. And we're not going to water this thing until I know for sure that it needs it, and we'll see if we can rejuvenate that bad boy, because the bottom of that, the trunk system in the Devare area, is really fun and gnarly, and we hope that one survives. And then you can't see because of the shade versus the sun contrast, but these are the collected larches from up north last year with my buddy Steve, and this is just off into the shade, but it's doing really well, thickening up the cotoneaster forest. That's just for future plantings. And so there's the bench and the trees on the bench. Next down the line for the riverway towards the lower pond, I have this lower bench here. And I just have this, I don't even know what kind of juniper that is. It might be a Scandia juniper, just from your common nursery find. So this is a brush cherry. So I did some research on brush cherry because brush cherry has always thrown me off. I always thought it was a tropical plant, and then I found out, someone was telling me that it could go dormant a little bit, or at least cool off, but it was an evergreen. I've always been confused about the brush cherry, and I just got it at a local store, not really knowing much about it. I do have some pictures of like the zones in our country, and it's all down coastal, southern Florida and California, and down there southern, so not meant to really stay outside in the winter here for sure. So I do bring these plants indoors every year, and I don't recall if I put them in a cold frame this past winter, but that might be a little too cold, and I don't think they want to freeze. So I have to do some more research. If anybody knows about brush cherries, go ahead and tell me about that. But again, I did a little bit of research here on the last couple of days. So this is one of my Japanese maples that's sprouting out a whole bunch of new growth, which is really good to see, because I've had some of this fungus issue with some of my trees this year, whether it's been the lilac trees or even some of the Japanese maples. I've had some of that brown, crusty, I think fungal issue. So some friends from Minnesota Bonsai Society have been telling me I probably have to get a little bit more chemical with my sprays and not just use neem oil and try to get rid of the fungus. So defoliated this thing right now before your eyes. I got all this new growth in here, and we'll see what happens with this tree. And I might have to start investing into some more heavy-duty sprays, but I'm really nervous about doing that. I really want to stay organic as long as possible, but I also don't want to lose trees. So these guys are doing well on the benches. So back over here, I have a taxus just growing on one of the benches, really good. Over there I have a Japanese maple, again, that has some of the possible fungus on there. This one, before I left on my 9-day adventure, I went ahead and got rid of most of the leaves that had the brown on there. So here's a couple of stragglers on here. But since I left on my break, this is all new growth. All of this is new growth. I almost completely defoliated this Japanese maple. And so anywhere there are some leaves that still have the brown on there, guys, this was going to be a sacrificial branch to thicken this up here. And I have some new growth. Yeah, I have 4 new buds right here. 1, 2, 3, 4 low on this branch. So this will continue to grow, and this is all new. But if we look right here, oops, I can zoom in right there. Japanese beetle. Don't want the Japanese beetle dealing with my Japanese maple and creating more bad spots on my tree. A little further down the garden, I do have my trident maple that when I show you a picture of the before of this one, this is the one that I work in my workshops in the fundamental group with Peter T. We chopped down to nothing, pretty much nothing. The roots and all, nothing. And this is the second summer in this box. And the rodents this spring put it down to nothing again. And so this is all growth. This is all growth from this year. And in the 9 days I've gone, I swear this whole hand size of growth is new. And it's thickened up beautifully. So being gone for a full week plus, you can really see what's happening with your tree. So you can't even see the trunk hardly in this tree, but it's got a nice little nabari. And I'm just glad that it's shooting up. We're going to bring this to one of our workshops when Peter T comes back to town, and we'll see which direction we'll go with this trident maple. Got a little cloud cover now, so the bright sun isn't happening over here. I took some cuttings of one of my Japanese maples before I left, and I left my cover on. So I have a little temporary little cover with some wood and some plastic here that I put on to give it some more greenhousey humidity and to keep those roots moist. I forgot to take it off, so when the automatic feeder went, the automatic water sprinkler system, this didn't get any water, so we've got a lot of crusty leaves. It looks like there's a couple back here that kind of survived. We'll see, we'll give it some water, and hopefully things will go good. So we have the bench over here, we've got the Minnesota forest, we've got the larch over here, and the one in the back with the Alberta spruce. Looks like the Japanese beetles have really decimated the Chinese elm back here. Hard to see on camera, but we're left with about maybe 25% of the leaves, but there's still new shoots being pushed out. I think the Japanese beetles have possibly moved on from this tree to another one. The one back here is actually Japanese beetles right there. Right there. I wish I had chickens. I wish I had Nigel's chickens here. There's 4 or 5 beetles on here. The Chinese elm is also being attacked by the beetles. Yeah, we're gonna have to do something over here with these trees. But the maple that had died off back here completely rebounded back to life, so we'll see if this one continues to grow. That'll be nice. All the other trees have some new growth on them. That's really nice. Here's another one of the barberries over here. The larch are doing fine. But if you notice out back here, I got a little bit of death. My juniper cascade is fine. More taxuses are fine. But I knew this was going down, but my Norway spruce over here just has pretty much gone to nothing. This one had a little struggle last year, and I thought it had a really good comeback this year, and now everything's all dried out, and there's just a few dangling. It almost looks like a weeping tree now, but as you can see, the needles are just kind of fluffing right off there. I got some good moss on this tree right here. Look at that pretty moss right there. I got some beautiful moss right there growing. One of my best mosses of anywhere, but the tree didn't survive, so I'd rather have the tree survive. So the bench is okay. The Japanese beetles, here's another one right here. On my, this is a black pussy willow cutting from Henry, and the Japanese beetles are really liking this too much too. So we're gonna have to do some researching on how I can really maybe take care of some of these Japanese beetles, because I can't be out here plucking them every day. So this is the north-facing bench, or actually it faces south. It's on the north side of the garden. We're gonna move on to bench number 1. Here's the update that many of you have been waiting for, and sad to say, this hemlock has bitten the dust. We did the top-down repot on this, which I think is a really good method. Check out that video just for the method. I watched it after Tom Fincer did it out at the Farm to Table out in Oregon with BSOP. They did a Farm to Table event. Tom Fincer is the one who's really been doing the top-down repot, where you repot the top half of it. If it's a really big tree in a nursery pot, possibly root-bound, and you take all the top half layer out with a hose. Watch that video. Nigel Saunders did that as well with his new 60th birthday present tree. This one was on its way out though, and if anybody watching the video on the hemlock probably were thinking that my chances of survival on this tree were pretty slim, and I wasn't expecting miracles, but we sure hoped for one. But we have lost all green on the hemlock, and as conifers go, if you don't have any foliage on there, you're going to have death, and you're not going to have a tree for very long. So we just lost too much foliage on this tree. Again, fungus possibly overwatering. Could have been an extremely root-bound pot. I'll take a peek at the roots on this one later and see. And we'll try that top-down method on a different tree, and hopefully we'll see what kind of success we'd have. So not a complete failure, because I was able to learn that process on a tree that was, you know, kind of on its way out, but I did the process, learned it, and we'll see if we can do it on a tree that's healthier next year, and hopefully make that an easier process for repotting. So the hemlock, I still have dreams for the beautiful trunk here, and that'll be coming in a future episode. I've said that more than once, but it's coming. I don't know if it'll come this year or not, but we're going to do something with this beautiful trunk. Now let's go take a peek at that east bench. So here is the sprinkler head right down here that was keeping the east benches all nice and watered. And so let's go and start in the back, and we'll pull out towards the front. We do have a little bit of breeze here and there. I've got one of my weeping willows in the log. There were 3 in there originally. There's only 1 left. Nice to know the tomatoes are doing really good since I left. We got height above the tomato rack there. We have the birch forest on the slab looking really, really good. My big larch that I did at the Peter T workshop earlier this spring. We got a little bit of death at the top, but this was a great big tree that we cut down and made this big death on top. We're just going to chop that anyway, make the gin a little bit lower. We'll gin some of those top branches. We've got plenty of new elongation. And then we have a lot of the other larch, my 3 and 5 larch clumps that we planted this spring. And we've got a couple up there, a couple up there, right there and there. And they're looking really good and pushing out a lot of great growth. And right behind this one right here, look at the Melina. Look at all that growth on the Melina. The Melina, super healthy. Loving life there. We've got the ficus forest down there, the Benjamina. We've got the Premnas all down here. All of them look really, really good and thick. This one over here, looking really nice and thick. Some junipers on the ground. I do want to point to another massive destruction, though. Look what the Japanese beetle did to the Marquette grape. So the Marquette grape has all of these leaves that were completely decimated by the Japanese beetles, and they've moved on. But look right here, 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 there, and there, and over there. There's new growth on this. Of course, it's still alive. The Japanese beetles just pruned it for me, whether I wanted them to or not. Up on the top row, we got a melon seed ficus and a Premna doing okay. Back there, a jade. Oh, look at the Green Island ficus is doing really well right there since we left. We've got a jade back there, a Portulacaria mini jade that's got the top that looks like it's been eaten off a little bit. So we'll have to investigate that. But look at the other Melina. Look at the growth back there in the Melina. That thing's shooting up like crazy. So the Melinas and the Premnas had a slow start this year, but boy, they sure like things now. And after being gone and having the water on there, it didn't seem to cause any detrimental damage to the trees. A couple more of those larch forests. Here's the lilac bush, which we had again some of the brown stuff, but look, we have some new growth right here. New growth right here. That's the first time I've seen new growth on this tree on the upper canopy for a long time. Now we still have a little bit of brown stuff trying to creep in a couple of these branches. So we'll have to clear all those out again, maybe make some prunes, the last final prune before the winter comes in a couple of months. Couple more updates. So here are the amur clusters, the clump style amurs. This was back in the corner and we moved it out before I left so it would get water and get more sun, and we're getting all kinds of new growth down here. Some of the red colors down here, this amur new growth over here. There's some new growth growing right in there. So if we go down here, that's starting to bush up a little bit more and look kind of nice. And look at the other one right here. Look at all the nice new growth on this amur maple. Big wind gust here, my apologies. All these red tips here. All this red colored tips, new growth on the amur. My Portulacarias and my Thanksgiving cactuses were brought down from the upper deck to be down here to get watered. I was really nervous about having these be watered every single day, but they are lush and loving life. But we have a Japanese beetle right there. Not anymore. So those, we're going to have to make sure we don't water those for a while here, let them dry out a bit. I might even in a couple of days defoliate these and do some work on these Portulacarias, and we'll go ahead and trim those up. And then when you defoliate and trim those up, you don't have to water them for a couple of days. The pines that we transplanted this spring all look pretty good. They're all along here looking bushy and nice. Here is the Colorado Blue Spruce we did with the workshop back this spring, and it is completely bit the dust. This one I was completely worried about. It lost a lot of foliage, but the tip really did really well midway through the spring and into the early summer. But again, did I overwater this one? Was this a fungus issue? I'm super bummed about it because it was such a fun, gnarly trunk, but there was some bad reverse taper down there, and we win some and we lose some. And then we come to the other part of this east bench system, and this is where I put the shade cloth. It's up there blowing in the wind. And so everything under the shade looks really good. These larches are really popping up really nice and tall. A lot of good growth on there. My poplar back here, Quake and Aspen, a lot of new growth on here. Look at all that fresh green growth since we clipped that last. I don't even know if I showed that on the video. I just probably clipped it in the backyard. So that's a real nice, fun, tall tree with some new growth, but we'll have to probably do a trunk chop on that one someday. We have a couple of trees in the back. We've got more forests, the Siberian elms, and so far back here, these Siberians were not touched by the Japanese beetles. That's good. We have a cotoneaster that's come back, which is nice because I have lost a couple of cotoneasters. We got the Schefflera doing really well. I got it out of the direct sun, and that really started to perk it into place. And there's an example of one of my cotoneasters that did not make it. What happened to that cotoneaster? Right there, compared to this cotoneaster. I'm not sure if I'm having fungus issues or what. My Chinese elm, after the recent episode of that, has pushed out some new growth in the 9 days I've been gone. We did lose one of our larch that was collected 2 years ago. That one was struggling this spring. Just didn't quite have enough roots to put it in a pot this year. I did repot probably a year too early. So we lived and we learned. So the Green Island Ficus is down there, and the melon seed ficuses down there are bushing up really nicely, ready for the fall workshop. We'll work on those, and those people will take those trees inside the house. Their houses, of course. So my succulent PAs, Portulacaria apers, and my Thanksgiving cactuses have to go back up on the deck so they can get that full sun and they can dry out more, so we're going to move those right now. Now that I got all the Portulacaria apers and the Thanksgiving cactuses back up on the deck presentation, I can give these a little bit more room to breathe up here on the bench. That's going to do it for this update show, kind of a garden tour at the end of July. So those new to the channel, hey, thanks for joining. Again, a big thanks to Nigel Saunders for having us out there at his place in the Bonsai Zone. And now we got a good update, a good view of kind of what's happening in Dave's Bonsai. His world, my world, right? Oh, wait a minute. There's one tree that I've completely forgotten. That's right, it's the Dashboard Ficus. This little guy survived the entire 9-day road trip, and as a matter of fact, it spent a lot of the time in the car. We took it out for some fresh air. There is little growth on here at the tips. There's some little growth that happened on the road trip. It didn't mind the greenhouse effect of the car at all. Guys, I got it to 100 degrees in there, and we warmed it up with water and kept it good. So the Dashboard Ficus survived. We'll put this back on the bench and hopefully it doesn't drop all of its leaves. Boy, I can't wait to show you all parts of the trip. It was a blast, so much fun. Big gust of wind. Let's get out of here. Hey, take care of you, take care of your bonsai, and you know we're gonna catch you very, very soon. Take care, everybody.